What's going on, everybody? Blue Raven here, and today is my ultimate guide to escalated Proto Gear. All that you need to know in order to get Proto Gear, to have the best chances to get Proto Gear. And in order to explain to you the best chances, how to get Proto Gear, the best odds of getting Proto Gear, I need to explain how it works. How does loot work in an MMO? So to understand that, you got to go all the way back to the 1980s. All looter games have one thing in common. They're stealing the way they give you loot off of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? Dungeons and Dragons did it first. They did it the best. And that method has never changed. Really, it really hasn't changed. The only difference is you just don't see how it's actually working. But if you were to actually have the ability to access the drop rates, the chances of you dropping, you would see it's no different than if you were to play Dungeons and Dragons with your friends. And what I mean by that, it's all a roll of the dice. It truly is. So in order to understand, for proto farming, I'm going to break down three things: how it works, where's the best ways to farm, and how does gear roll. The first being how does gear roll, because that's going to be the longest part of the explanation. Is how does actual gear see? Like there's a set piece that just dropped, right? How does the game determine me to get that to be a set piece, or that just to be a yellow, or not to be a guinea gear at all? Like this other guy, I just killed another yellow guy. He didn't drop anything, right? So how does the game determine that guy didn't drop anything, but that guy dropped set gear? So to understand that, you got to understand how the gear is supposed to. I'm going to be breaking it in layman's terms, okay? So this is going to be the bare bones version of how the devs actually do this, how they pull this magic off, right? Because that's what we're all here for, is for that juicy loot. By the way, this recording is right after another recording I posted, where I did another tier 1, and I got 2 protos in one run. In a tier 1, I got 2 pieces of proto gear in one run. This one, we'll see how many I get. I don't want to spoil it because I want you to watch the whole video. But anyways, let's talk about the gear rolls. So for you to understand how the gear rolls, you have to use a bit of imagination. You have to look at each enemy and think of there's a dice above their head that's, as soon as you come in contact with them, it starts rolling. It stops rolling once you kill them, okay? Now, I'm going to give values to each type of enemy type. Now, these values are completely fictional. These are fictitious numbers. This isn't what the devs have them set to. This is just me explaining it in my way, so you can understand it, okay? So, again, we're picturing each version of enemies with a dice above their head. So if you looked at a red enemy and they had a dice above their head, the dice would be it would be rolling between 1 and 1,000. Okay? Well, what does that mean? We're going to give values to all these numbers here in a second, but just think of a 1,000-sided dice above the red barred enemies' heads, okay? Purple bars, 1 in 750. So a 750-sided dice. Yellow bars would be a 500-sided dice. A named enemy would be a 250-sided dice, and a boss, being they're so unique and so rare, would be a 100-sided dice. Okay? Again, this is not the devs' numbers. This is just me giving. I am putting numbers to the enemies so you can understand how this works. Okay? So the way it works, we're going to use a red enemy as the benchmark. When I see a red enemy, that 1,000-sided dice starts spinning. As soon as I kill that enemy, that dice stops. And whatever that number is, it dictates what's going to happen next. And this all happens instantaneously, okay? So let's say I kill a red bar and nothing happens. I kill them, they die, there's nothing on the ground. That means the devs have it set to between 1 and 250. Nothing happens. If you kill a red bar and you roll the dice and you get 1 to 249, you're not going to get anything from that red bar. But right at 250, something else is then going to happen. If you hit that magic number 250, a second dice then rolls. That dice is then going to dictate what you're going to get, what's going to fall on the ground. Okay? It could be ammo, it could be armor, it could be weapon, and it could be a mod. Okay? That second dice dictates what that is. Okay? And the devs have that number set. Let's say that's set between 250 and 500. Between 250 and 500, you're just going to get ammo and ammo and specialty ammo. So ammo for your gun or specialty ammo for your signature weapon, right? But let's say you roll a 501. Okay, now 501 is specifically set to gear, weapons and armor and mods. Okay, that's going to roll the third dice. That third dice is going to be a much smaller dice because now it's already set to a specific value. It's set to the armor, if you're going to get armor or you're going to get a weapon, right? And that dice actually serves two purposes. It's going to be an armor. It's actually going to be two dice. Sorry, because it's either going to be an armor and a weapon. There's the first dice, and the other dice is going to be determine the rarity. Is it yellow or is it set? That's your two options on this dice roll. So we're into the third tier, right? We're in the third tier where there's two dice. One's going to be determining if you're going to get a weapon or you're going to piece of armor. And the second dice is going to determine, is it going to be a yellow, a named, or a set gear? Okay, because you can get one of those three, right? But let's say you roll the max. Right? So let's say that value is 250, between 1 and 250, right? For that third dice. And you hit 250. That's then going to roll a fourth dice. I know this sounds confusing, but it isn't. That fourth dice then takes you from yellow gear to legendary gear or proto gear based on what you're doing. If you're in an escalated event, you're into, it's either going to drop a legendary piece or a proto piece of gear. Okay? That dice is going to have three dice attached to it. One, the first dice is going to is it going to be legendary or proto? Let's say it's proto. Okay, so then it's going to roll the second dice, which is going to determine if it's going to be a weapon or an armor piece. And then the third roll is going to determine what the stats are going to be on that proto piece of gear. Okay, does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining this. And again, this is not the devs numbers. This is just I'm putting out there to make it. I'm trying to dumb it down so it's everybody can digest and understand. We're like, wait, what is he talking about? All these dice. So to sum it up real quick, you have a maximum of, let's see, 1, 2, 3 plus 2, so that's 5. 6 plus 3, so 9. You have a total of 9 dice that'll potentially roll every time you kill a red barred enemy. Now this is just red barred enemies, okay? You have a chance of getting up to 9 different rolls, okay? But the odds are not in your favor to get to that 9th number, that magic 9, okay? The odds are not in your favor because, again, the value, you have to hit a minimum value on that very first dice roll to even start triggering the next dice, and then trigger the dice of that and one after that, right? So ideally, killing a purple enemy, that values are shrunken down. You went from 1,000 to 750. So instead of having to hit that so that 250, that minimum 250 threshold doesn't change between a red and a purple. It's just the dice is smaller, so the chances of you hitting that 250 has just increased. And then if you get to a yellow enemy, right, now you're at 500. So now you have a 50-50 shot, almost a 50-50 shot of that yellow enemy rolling into gear. Okay? A named enemy is already in gear. When you kill a named enemy, you should get gear every time you kill them. Every time you kill a named enemy, because the minimum threshold that I set at 250 is being met on that dice. So it's then being determined, are you getting yellow, set, legendary, or proto with a named enemy? Bosses, you're going to even have an even higher chance of getting those rolls. Now, bosses could be under the same values. The devs could have bosses under the same values as named enemies. I don't know. I don't actually know the numbers on that. I'm just giving you guys a chart that you can understand. Okay, so now that we understand how gear rolls, how the gear rolls, then we got to talk about, okay, well, what's the best farming method then? Farming is all about time. Well, there's two things. It's actually two things: time and mob density. The more ads you have, the better chances you have of rolling gear. Okay, because every time you kill an enemy, that dice, each enemy is individual. They don't cluster them together. So if you kill 3 enemies all at once, it's not one dice rolling. It's still 3 dice rolled. It just happens instantaneously. It's insane if you think about it, really. So I will tell you this: whatever is the best time clear for you, I would recommend doing that. Okay? So if doing story missions, if you can clear a story mission, let's say 10 minutes, you can get the bank. Like this week, the bank is a story mission, right? Coney Island's a story mission. If you can clear those in like 10 minutes, you can burn through it on like a good, decent tier. Let's say tier 2, tier 3. Let's say tier 2. Because I think I figured out how they've done the tiers. But basically, based on my experience in the game, tier 0 to tier 2 is all the same. The only difference is the enemies are slightly tankier as you get to 2. Tier 3 is when the enemies change because they get an additional modifier, and the actual the quality of the enemies change. So you're going to see a lot less reds, you're going to see more purples, and a lot more yellow bars. Tier 5s, you're not going to see any reds. You're going to see virtually no reds once you hit tier 5. When you hit 5, it's going to be purples and yellows, and you're not going to see any reds. And then tier 5 above that, it just gets harder and harder. So again, they're not changing the values of the dice. They're changing the mob densities, the types of mobs you're going to encounter. You're going to get more named enemies. You're going to get more yellow bars. But at the same time, a tier 10 on Roosevelt Island may take you 40 minutes to clear, versus a tier 2 may only take you 20 minutes. This only takes me usually 20 minutes. On tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 is like 25 minutes. So I can do a tier 3 in like 25 minutes. And that's the magic for me. Is the story missions I can clear in between 10 and 15 minutes, which is cool. But there's not a ton of mob density in the story missions. Coney Island has a good mob density, but there's exceptions to the rule. But typically, the most mob density you're going to see is in strongholds. So the strongholds, ideally, are going to be the best for quick farming. So getting through them at a lower tier and still getting a chance of getting Proto Gear, I would personally say would be your strongholds. If you want to take a little bit more time and have a lot harder enemies, but you're going to have a much higher drop rate of Proto Gear, I would say do the higher tiers in the story missions. They're shorter, so you can clear them faster, and you can increase the mob type. The density is not going to change, but the mob type, so going from red bars to purple bars to yellows to names and whatnot, is going to change in the higher tiers. So doing a higher tier stronghold doesn't really make sense because you're going to be in there too long. So in the time it takes me to clear a tier 5 in a stronghold, I can probably clear almost 3 tier 3s in the stronghold, or 2 tier 3s, right? I can get to them much faster at a lower tier, and the mob density doesn't change. So I'm killing way more mobs at a way higher clip at a lower tier than at a higher tier in the strongholds. But if I go into a story mission and I go to a tier 5, I might be able to almost clear that the exact same clip as a lower tier of the story mission, but the mob quality is much, much higher. So the chances of getting into that 4th dice roll is much better. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining this as the best. I prefer doing the strongholds because the mob density is there for me. in one. I'm trying to think of how many actual clears I've done this week. I did Coney Island. I cleared Coney Island probably 10 times, and I think I may have gotten one piece of Proto Gear out of it. I cleared the bank probably 10 times. I didn't get any. I got 0 Proto Gears from the bank. I've cleared Roosevelt probably 5 or 6 times, and I want to say I've gotten like 5 or 6 pieces of Proto Gear. Now, that's not to say, and this is all at tier 1s. Now, that's not to say that I'm getting a Proto every clear. But I've noticed that with the density of the mobs, if I get one in a clear, I typically will see another one in that same clear. I don't know why, but it's the way it works. I will tell you this video, and then I did another run right after this one on tier 2. So I did this one as tier 1, and I did tier 2 after this. 0 protos between this one and a tier 2. I got none. Okay, I got a lot of greens, got a lot of yellows. I got no Proto Gear. So spoiler alert, because this video is about over, I didn't get any more Proto Gear. I didn't get any Proto Gear on this run. But that's not to say that another tier 1 wouldn't give me 2 pieces. Because in the video before this one, you see I get 2 pieces of Proto Gear on a tier 1 run. This is all RNG, guys. Anybody who says the values at tier 1 is 0.6% drop rate, they don't know that. They can't know that without the devs letting people know. Without the devs going, we have it set. This is the numbers we have it set for each tier. Without the devs actually confirming that, it's all conjecture. It's all, well, I played it. I did 10 runs at tier 1, and this is how many protos I did. I did 10 runs at tier 2. I did 10 runs at tier 3, and they did 10 runs on each one from 0 to 10. And then they get their averages from each run, and then they're saying, okay, based on my experience, this is what I got, right? But that's not how that works, is it? Right? Because each run is its own unique run. It's like playing the lottery, right? You don't get better odds each time you play it. The odds stay the same every time you play it. So keep that in mind. So I hope this video has been informative. I hope you guys liked the video. Again, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. When I hit 1,000 subscribers, I got big plans for that. When that happens, we're getting closer. So if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. You're not hurting anybody. Subscribe. Leave me a comment if this was too complicated for you. If I overcomplicated it, let me know. If I made it too dumb, let me know that too. But I know, guys, I hope you guys liked the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Guys, I will see you on the next video. Take care. I hope everybody has a great day. Peace.